This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
And we have another wonderful episode teed up for today.
I think so. It just keeps getting better and better. You know, maybe because I'm like this lifelong learner, so I learn from everything. I'm going to find.
Well, it always surprises me because you identify something that has been like just so part of the middle of normal for me for years and years and years. It's like, oh, yeah, that could be a thing.
Let me just tell you, you hit the nail right on the head. No question about it, because you have lived this for how many years?
Found this teaching in 96, I think. So it's coming up on 30 years.
Yes. So it just flows, right? It just rolls off your tongue. It's just it's your life. It's your thing. It's what you live and breathe, and it's your language. But for those of us, and sometimes I feel really comfortable, and then I talk to you and I think, okay, let me just go back and read again. We will never exhaust Ernest Holmes. That's for sure. But there are times when I think, you know what, let me just put everything aside and spend like a couple of hours with Ernest Holmes and just get re-centered, because apparently you have forgotten something, girlfriend. So, But see, for you, you like know the books and the page numbers and the paragraphs and all that,
Only a few of them. And I'm like far from a biblical scholar with the Science of Mind textbook. I know a few choice pieces. The first 4 chapters are really, really potent and powerful. And then the next best thing is the glossary, because you can find a lot in the Science of Mind textbook by reading the glossary.
Absolutely. But I'm going to go through those first 4 chapters. I'm going to put it on my list of, I organize myself so good. So I'm going to go do that again.
Yeah. Well, it was 1938 that he wrote the beginning of the chapter 1, which was, we all look forward to the day when science and religion will walk hand in hand together into the future. And we keep waiting.
Well, but I think there's a greater acknowledgement, on both parts now than there have been before. I mean, at least they're sitting at the table in many ways now where that wasn't the case, because I remember being younger. From a religious side, of course, if you start talking about science, well, you have really blasphemed. So there was no way the discussion could happen. But now, we're getting there, I think.
Yep. Well, the work that I've been doing lately, we're teaching a class in Living Untethered, which is the book by Michael Singer. And the point that he makes is that people think that there's a duel between science and God. And he points out that it's mostly people's laziness of not committing to one or the other. Because if you believe in science, then everything that exists is an absolute freaking miracle. And if you believe in God, then everything that exists is an absolute freaking miracle. And it's just, if you're sitting back saying, well, it couldn't be this or it couldn't be that, and you just want to have it be about the fight, then you miss the point. It's pretty freaking amazing.
I don't get it. Like, if God is everything, what's the big deal? Where do you find the separation? Because I think, and I especially like the name infinite intelligence, which takes everything in. I mean, infinite intelligence is everything. So where is God that science is not? You know, to me, it's really very simple. Now, that doesn't mean I'm a scientist and I understand everything, but the whole concept to me is just like, why fight it? You know, just try to understand it, because this is it. This is what is.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, the great point, as far as I'm concerned, is that they're not in disagreement. We can say that God created the entire manifest universe, and the Big Bang is how God did it.
Mm-hmm. Which you so eloquently and detailed on Sunday in the star stuff. Things. Yes.
We are stars. We are stardust was the talk that I did, and basically went very briefly through the entire history of time, 14 billion years that have led up until this moment. And along the way, how absurd it is that we have an opinion about the little tiny fraction of the universe that appears in front of us, and we can say that it's good or bad. It's like, it's an infinite universe, 14 billion light years across, 14 billion years in the making. Our opinion has nothing to do with it. What's happening just is happening, and we get to engage with it.
And I agree with you. And I also just was rather fascinated at how you brought it. You said 14 billion years or before. Yeah. How many billion? Okay. And so how you just walked us very quickly through 14 billion years up to the point of peace of mind. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Now, we need peace of mind. And I don't have the intellect to trace it back to the Big Bang, so therefore I have peace of mind. Like I'm walking with you through your talk, and I'm good with it because I've heard you do it more than once. Mm-hmm. So I put on a different hat and I track read, but but I'm thinking, no, not really, because it makes sense, and it just makes sense. However, where we are right now, help us understand how to embrace peace of mind, because we may not be able to understand it in the sense of being stardust. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The idea behind stardust is that everything that exists basically was created at that moment of creation when the Big Bang banged. And it has taken 14 billion years for the matter and the energy to continue to unfold and reveal and interact with itself to get us to the situation that we're in right now. So there's stuff that's happening. That's the technical term, stuff. Ernest Holmes uses that as well. There's stuff that is going on in the world around us. And we get to perceive it. We get to experience it. It is happening in the world around us, and it touches right up against us because we're part of that same star stuff. We're creations of that infinite presence. And so we're interacting with it. And when something happens and we have a preference about it, we either lean into it because we like it, or we lean away from it because we don't like it. Mm-hmm. And it is the leaning in or the leaning away that is our preference, where we get the energy, and then whatever's happening around us is controlling us internally. Mindfulness is the ability to observe the stuff that's going on around us and not letting it hook our attention, to just be aware of what's going on. Okay, I prefer this. I don't prefer that. I'd like something different to be happening. I'd like this to be happening some more, but I'm not invested in it and putting myself energetically into that. And that's peace of mind. Mindfulness and peace of mind are two sides of the same coin.
And that's perfect, because I think that it makes sense. Let me see how I could phrase it. It makes perfect sense to me, because I feel when I was little, what I used to do, I don't know where I got this from, but I would imagine going to Mars. And I mean, I was real little, so the extent of my knowledge was the 9 planets that were a part of this solar system.
That's a good start.
So I would go to Mars and sit there and look down at Earth and things that were happening. And I had no feeling about it, because I detached myself, To me, it was a very real experience. And I can talk about that some other time, but it was a very real experience. But the whole idea, the principle of it, as I see it now, was to be detached from the thing, you know, and I could look at situations that were going on and be able to understand them as they were, or interpret in my way. And perhaps a better, more mature way to look at that now, or to describe that, would be mindfulness. And it's not wooey, you know, it's stepping back and being detached and look at what is, so that you're not swept away with the crazy. And you can lose
swept away with the crazy. Yeah.
Really, because you will absolutely lose your peace of mind if you don't find a way to step back. Whether it is a little girl going to Mars and looking down at everybody and saying, I'm not a part of this, but I can see how this is happening and I can see it more objectively and blah, 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 you know, that way, or the more mature way to practice mindfulness and understand who we are in this world, right? I'm a part of you, but I don't have to be a part of your madness. And,
Amen.
You know,
Amen to that. Yeah. And that actually, what you were doing is, you know, when you were a little girl, is the part of a really powerful meditation that I sometimes do, which is a zoom out meditation. Because we get so wrapped around the axle and the stuff that's going on right in front of us. If we zoom out and realize, okay, there's an entire community that's involved in this, and it's affecting some of us, but it's not affecting others of us. And if you zoom out even further, you're now where it's at a statewide or a nationwide level. It's like, yeah, this thing that's going on that's really huge in my life is really, in the big scheme of things, not that important. And then you keep zooming out until you're looking at multiple galaxies. And it's like, okay, cataclysmic change going on planet Earth. It's really not changing the universe that much. And it gives us some perspective to realize that I don't need to be quite as attached to this as I have been up until now, even if it's something that's really hooked my attention and gotten me involved. Being able to zoom out and take that perspective from Mars is huge. It's huge.
And part of me, and I don't know when this part came alive, but helping other people to find their peaceful place. You know, so they're not, to use the street term, so they're not freaked out by every little thing that's going on. And once you're like so energetically involved in the craziness, your world is falling apart. Your world, you know, is not whole, and your body can become sick because of that. So in a lot of ways, I am very conscious of helping others find peace of mind through detaching from, like I said, the crazy that's going on. Because, you know, what's going on now, the madness that's going on now, 2 years from now will be something you talk about without a whole lot of energy behind it, anger, you know, maybe some disappointment, but then there'll be some new stuff. And
there will always be new stuff. That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. So let's take a break, and we'll come back and talk more about crazy making, leaning into the crazy, leaning away from the crazy, and not letting the crazy affect us. It's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at BeTheLight.com. That's B-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at BeTheLight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you, and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Bill Marcioni. This is a great discussion.
We're talking about peace of mind. And peace of mind is something that happens not because of the circumstances that we're in, but in spite of the circumstances that we're in. It is possible for something really wonderful to happen, and we get all crazy about it. Or something that we describe as really terrible to happen, and we get all crazy about it. And the crazy on either side of that line is what's taking us out of our place of equilibrium and balance and peace of mind.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
You know those kids' toys that you fill up the little punching bag that has the sand in the bottom of it?
Yeah.
You punch it and it tips over and then it tips back up. That is our natural state. Yes, we get pushed around by the stuff that's going on, but our natural state is to return to that place of balance and equilibrium. And if something's going wrong and we're keeping ourselves leaning all this way over that way or leaning all the way over this way, it becomes unsustainable.
Absolutely. I encountered a situation recently, and as you were talking, it came back to me very recently, actually. And some madness was happening. And I looked, and at first, I didn't feel anything, but I thought, I've seen this before. I've seen this matter of fact, I've seen this a few times, and I know that I can't do anything about this because nobody's listening and there's other stuff going on. And so I just retreated. I mean, I stayed in the room, but in my little girl language, I went to Mars. And I just, I said, this will be over soon. And when it is, I'll come back and just pick up where I left off. That's just the way I do it, and I think that you have to be okay with that, because if not, you will just get carried away. Then what happens?
Oh yeah, well,
especially if it's something you can't change.
I find that there's very little shortage of people who are willing to invite me to be emotionally and energetically off balance. They'll serve stuff up and tell me what the problem is, and raise their hands over their head and go and invite me to buy into it. And I have enough experience buying into it that I know I can do that. I can do that. I can buy in. I can get all wrapped around the axle in whatever the circumstance or situation is. And I also have the ability to look at it from a different perspective. Now, this sometimes gets me in trouble because people say, you're always playing devil's advocate. It's like, not actually playing devil's advocate. I'm just saying that perhaps there's a way of approaching or understanding this that doesn't include the hysteria that you're bringing to it. People who are bringing hysteria very much like they like an accomplice, I think. They like somebody who's going to join them in the hysteria rather than say, well, you know what, that's the evildoers who you've just identified are probably getting up in the morning trying to do the best they can, and it's just not working in a way that's harmonious for you. But that takes so much energy away from it. Those evildoers, those miscreants, those heathens, those bastards. Look at what they're doing.
So how does this, if I get a word in edgewise sometime in situations like this, I'll ask a question. How does this help me or you at this point? I mean, what exactly does this have to do with what you're going through, what you're trying to accomplish, your goals, your being your higher self, depending on what the company is? Just how does this have anything to do with that? And I always get the look. Yeah, she's going to take you higher. No, I'm just asking a question, right? Can you survive without being crazy? And then say, I don't have peace of mind about this. Your peace of mind is your responsibility. Not anybody, not the world's to settle down so you feel good.
Oh, but yeah. If you're expecting the world to change so you can be peaceful, it's like, yeah, that's going to be a while. This is 14 billion years to get it to the level of crazy that you're at now. So it's not going to be the universe that's taking the next move on this one.
Yeah. And so what exactly is to be accomplished anyway. You know, if we get into the madness, are we going to unmad it? I don't think so. I really
Probably not. Probably not. There are three magical little words that can be tremendously helpful and accomplish the same thing that asking a question does. And it's usually when somebody's talking about, this is awful and these people hate me and this is never working and I never have enough money and I'm always sick and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the three magical words are up until now. The entire story that we're telling is stuff that's happened up until now.
Up until now.
Up until now. Okay. And that's sort of the pause and say, okay, if you were to write the next page or the next chapter or the next volume in this story, would you be repeating that up until now story and continuing along with all the things that you're lamenting now? Or would you write something different?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a reminder that we're creative beings and we can write something different. We can choose something else. We can let go of our attachment to the things, the horrible way those bastards have been treating us and the things that they've taken away and how we're so victimized and so oppressed and it's never going to get any better. Yeah, well, the past isn't going to change. The past is not going to get any better, but right now, transformation is at hand. There's an infinite creative power that creates everything and it's able to create something new and spectacular starting right now. It doesn't even need a wind-up.
No.
the story can go from horrible to spectacular, like instantly. You go, what happened? How did that happen? We have no idea how it happened. It just happened.
And it's within your power to do that. You know, you can change. It's like changing the subject in a way. I'm just not going to go down this road, even without saying it. But there's a word, I don't want to say a term, but a word that you use in prayer that really triggers it for me. And it's just the trigger. The word turn away from. And I just love that because it makes me feel I have the power to turn away from this or not. And it really starts and stops right there for me, you know, because I'm incredibly, people say you're the most calm and incredibly peaceful person I know. And they used to call me the coolest preacher, as though nothing upsets me. It does. But those words that you say, and I'll admit they are not words I used, but turn away. I have power to turn away from this. I'm just not getting into this with you or with not you as a person, but I'm just not getting into this. I can't do it. One, I don't like the way it makes me feel.
Yeah. Imagine yourself being in a room with multiple movie screens. And on one movie screen, there is a train wreck in progress, screeching, grinding, flames, all the rest of that. And on another one, there's puppies playing. And on another one, there's a beautiful sunset. And on another one, there's hunters going after their prey. All of these things are available to us. And the thought that, oh my God, the train wreck is going, I have to watch every detail of it and get completely absorbed in it. Look at the puppies. Turn away from the train wreck and look at the puppies because the puppies make you feel the way you choose to feel. The train wreck is still going on. It doesn't have anything to do with you.
Exactly. And you can do that. You know, you can do that. It's like, I don't know if we were talking one time about movies, or maybe it was you or somebody else. You don't have to watch the stupid thing if it's making you feel uncomfortable or, you know, you don't have to watch it. You could be 15 minutes into it. You don't owe anybody anything to watch it to the end. Just switch the channel, you know, but let me say this and I'll stop. Maybe you have to have a reason. For me, it was incredibly important, above all else, to have a peaceful household where my kids could feel happy and not be worried and all stressed out. Everything had to line up with that. I made choices, you know, that's how it has to go. They talk about that now. I just would wonder why people would hope that people could choose to be calmer, because the crazy, like I said, is going to happen. It's going to continue to happen until it doesn't. And it could change at any time.
And the crazy will happen whether we're buying into it or not.
Mm-hmm.
The crazy happens if we jump in and go, full Monty. Then we become part of the crazy. And if we watch the crazy and go, yeah, there's some crazy going on over there, and I'm going to prioritize my peace of mind and equanimity, and I'm going to understand that the crazy is going to go along as long as it's going to go on. There may be an opportunity for me to rush in and join the first responders to help the folks who are getting caught up in the crazy, but I don't have to get involved in the vortex myself. It's always a choice.
Always. I like the screens. Did you say movie screens or Zoom screens? You said movie screens.
Movie
right?
screens, but you can do it with Zoom as well.
I'm using the movie screens. I like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you see how I lit up when you talk about the puppies? Yeah, that's always like a peaceful. Just find a place, Just find a place.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We all have a place. Puppies is a pretty easy one. Gorgeous Spring Days is another one. It is really easy to see God on a gorgeous spring day. In the middle of mudslides, takes more work. I freely admit that. The outside props definitely have some influence on us. But because we know it's possible on a gorgeous spring day, it's always going to be possible. It's about what we bring to it. Let's take another break, and when we resume, we will do a prayer on peace of mind and up until now.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marcione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm tongue-tied today. Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcione.
Been having a wonderful conversation about everything from the nature of the universe, 14-some billion years in the making, and being peaceful and in a state of peace of mind about whatever it is that is going on or has been going on. So it's not really, it's a big picture, but it's not a big ask. So let's do a prayer. Let's do a prayer based on that. And the prayer is based on the pivot. And the pivot, the trigger for the pivot is up until now. When we describe a situation or a circumstance or an experience that we've been having, that is our true understanding, our historical record of what has happened. And it has happened up until now. This present moment is the opportunity for it to all either continue or for it all change. And if we have an assumption that it's going to continue, then what we're doing is we're focusing our energy on continuing the problem, about continuing the drama, being victimized, being undermined, about whatever the challenges or difficulties are that we've been having. If, on the other hand, we realize that all of that is coming in as an indicator, as a story, as evidence of what we've been experiencing previously, we can make a conscious choice to no longer be engaged in the story and to instead invite something different and be peaceful about where we are. So as it's comfortable to do so, I invite you to close your eyes. And that lets us turn away from the details in the story and the drama that's been surrounding us and filling up our entire field of view for as long as it has. And realize that this next moment can be different. The next breath that we take can bring in something brand new. It is possible for transformation to happen, and it's never more than a breath away. So as you breathe into that, breathe in that feeling of peace and of harmony and of uplift and of calm. Understand what peace of mind means to you. That space of balance and equanimity and okayness, not running away from a problem that has been there or eagerly trying to attract something that's been elusive. Be peaceful in this place, at this time, right here and right now. In that space of peacefulness and peace of mind, we invite in something new. We turn our attention to that infinite creative power that has created everything. It's created all of the experiences that we've had so far. It's created this present moment now. And it's in the process of creating what's next for us. And it's already unfolding. So as we let go of our attachment to what has been and open to what's new, to what's possible, to what we're desiring instead, that infinite creative power is already responding. It's already saying yes to the good that we're opening ourselves to. And it happens, not necessarily in a timeline or a manner that we would define or understand. It can happen instantaneously. That transformation can be so sudden that when we look back on it and say, I have no idea how that possibly could have happened, but there it was, and it's all written down in my diary, and the experience that I'm living now is a result of that transformation. That good is that close by. We get to invite it in, to breathe it in, to allow ourselves to be guided into what to do next. What's our part? To be active in. What's our part to release? And let the rest of it go. Inviting that infinite creative power to create this next experience of newness for us. And it's saying yes, and the good is underway. And it's different for each one who's listening to this prayer, because we've each had different experiences up until now. So what's coming next is going to be different for each of us, but the same way for all of us. That same activity of divine goodness unfolding and revealing and expressing itself in and through and as our lives. I'm so grateful for this goodness. I'm so grateful for the transformation. I'm grateful for the stories we get to hear about just exactly how wonderful this process is. I had my whole life up until then, and suddenly now, bam, the good is at hand. It's unfolding now. And so with gratitude for all of this good, I speak this word and I release it into that creative law, the one that creates everything. And I know it now is creating this. And so with a deep feeling of thanks, I speak this word, I let it go, and I know it's so. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com.
Where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.